Welcome to Keep It Humane, the podcast, where we dive deep into topics surrounding kindness, compassion, and creating a more humane world, whether it's in our communities, in the workplace, or in the world of animal control and shelters. With our hosts,
Ashley Bishop.
And Ashley Bishop.
And I'm Daniel Ettinger. This show is sponsored by Tomahawk Live Trap. Check them out, livetrap.com.
Well. It's just the two of us again. Well, I mean, we have a guest, but Wisconsin Bishop, she is today she's working at it's FedEx, but not the regular FedEx where you ship stuff. She's doing the copier part where they do all like the yeah.
Oh, she's in-house doing copy stuff. Okay.
Yeah, she's doing copy stuff. Must be a difficult job. How you doing?
Good. It's been a rough weekend, but we're here, we're surviving. It's another week. We're starting that new fiscal year for us, so we're just waiting for October 1 to hit so we can get our brand new traps, because where are we going to get them from, Dan?
Well, Tomahawk Live Trap, you can save 10% on your order if you use discount code Keep It Humane. That's Keep It Humane in all caps. Check them out, livetrap.com. So I'm live on location, if you can't tell, with best friends No Kill LA behind me, which is fitting because we have PETA on today, and we're going to talk about the video. It's basically a commercial that they brought out within the last 2 weeks tops, and we'll show you that commercial here. If you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, you can see the commercial. And I thought it was just fitting to be here on location live from No Kill LA or Best Friends. I actually went in there, and I was pretty impressed with the facility. It's really nice. I mean, I didn't get a shelter vibe necessarily, even though when you go in, they obviously have kennels for dogs and cats. But the setup is like a house. It's like a house in Virginia, actually. It has this colonial style inside where you have to go upstairs to see some cats. It's pretty cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
interesting. How are you?
I did that. Me?
Yeah, you.
Well, I don't know how to sleep. I'm still learning. That's a difficult thing. I don't know if anyone else has that issue that I have, but melatonin doesn't work.
I could tell everybody I'm alive.
Yeah. We have a short show. We wanted to have PETA on to talk about the commercials. So we'll welcome Rachel Bellis. She is the director of local affairs in Virginia. Welcome to the show, Rachel.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me on.
We're happy to have you. And we've had Daphne on, and just recently, Daphne, who is the director of cruelty investigations, right? That's her.
She's the senior vice president of cruelty. She oversees Daphne oversees the department that I work in.
Okay. She's wonderful. And I know you're not just going to say that because she's your boss, but she's absolutely wonderful.
She really is. Yes.
So let's jump in. Let's show the viewers the video.
We aren't taking in animals.
But aren't you a shelter?
But we're a no-kill shelter. We don't have room.
The shelter said they're full. I don't know what else to do. I'm sorry, okay? I am so sorry.
Every day, shelters with no-kill policies turn animals away. They boast about their save rates, but countless animals aren't saved. No-kill policies betray animals.
So what was the inspiration behind this commercial?
We track cases around the country, and we're just seeing case after case of the consequences of no-kill policies that so many shelters are taking on, from animals being abandoned outside the shelters that they've been turned away from, to animals being left on the street, to animals being placed in unsuitable foster and adoptable homes. And so we wanted to put out a video really just trying to hit home and get the word out about this issue that really is happening all over the country.
I was looking at you, Ashley, because I felt like you had something to say.
No, yeah, for sure. And I think, when the video came out, it popped up on my feed on social media, and I was like, it really hits home for a lot of us. I am in the Deep South, where we have a huge issue. with the language, I think it really hurts everybody. I am unfortunately known as the kill shelter in our area, because we haven't met a certain standard. So I'm just curious, Rachel, like what kind of, I don't know if y'all are starting to store data on, these things that y'all are getting information on, and if you all are going to search for that data to kind of see what this, slogan has done to the industry overall.
Well, I mean, we know that the term kill and no kill, they're really divisive terms and they don't paint the whole picture. When somebody says, oh, that's a kill shelter, it's so deceiving and it's so disrespectful to the folks that work in those shelters and work so hard and take care of the community's animals and are really taking care of a problem that we created as humans by not sterilizing our animals or going to pet shops and breeders instead of going to shelters. And that, it's so harmful. And so really, I mean, I have a colleague who finds these cases and, we don't know how big, I mean, we know that the issue is big, but it's impossible to know how many animals are being turned away from shelters, really how bad, because we're tracking the cases that make it into the news, but we know that there's so many more animals that, have fallen to the consequences of these really harmful policies that aren't helping animals and they're not helping their community. We're dealing with it locally here as well in our own backyard with this really complicated language that not many people can understand. And, I was looking at a flyer today that a local shelter has on their website about, what to do if you find a kitten. And this language that's really like about deterring people from going to the shelter and placing the responsibility on the residents. If you find a kitten, take the kitten to the vet. If care for the kitten, if you can't care for the kitten, find somebody else who can. And it's really putting the onus on the good Samaritan who wants to do right by this animal. And it's really the shelter, especially the municipal shelters, that should be the safe haven for animals instead of turning animals away and leaving it to people who really might have no options, and so we're seeing it every day cases like this, whether it's animals being abused because, the shelters lowered the adoption standards and they were placed in unsafe homes, or packs of dogs running loose and terrorizing neighborhoods because shelters are full and they have no kill policies. All of these cases, and it's just every single day.
Rachel, we basically what I'm hearing is the side effects from the terminology. It's not just the terminology though. As I say a lot, like when I started in this industry 15, 16 years ago, I was, told, well, watch out for the bunny or the tree huggers, the bunny huggers, whatever the old timers would call the activists. And, PETA has its own stereotypes about its organization and what you guys do and don't do. And, we joke about it on some levels, but the reality is you take a practical approach to real problems. And that's what we're seeing here is a practical approach to something that people just don't understand or get behind. When I talk about, sorry, I'm in Los Angeles, so you might hear some sirens in the background. When I talk about like the consequences of what's happening is, like you talked about the wild dogs. There's a news article out of North Texas where there's a bunch of dogs and families don't feel safe. They don't want to send their kids to the bus stop. But my point is, it's not necessarily just about the language. It's about now we have shelters thinking that they have to live by this 90% standard that is truly arbitrary. Has PETA put any thought, with your organization, like how to maybe reevaluate that number and say, like, why does it have to be 90%? Because we know when they did it, when Nathan Winograd came up with it, he used shelters that had, a high socioeconomic community that they weren't seeing a lot of issues that we might see in, and I say this all the time, Memphis, Detroit, somewhere in Arkansas, etc. And so that 90% is definitely very arbitrary.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't think it's fair to put a percentage on it because everywhere is different and communities have different needs. And some shelters, some cities have large multi-million dollar shelters, and other cities or towns or counties in rural areas, they don't have those resources. And so I think it's unfair to put a number. We promote open admission shelters, especially municipal shelters that are taxpayer funded. If taxpayers can't get the services that they are essentially paying for by supporting the shelter through their taxes, where are they to go? And so open admission shelters that take in all animals, that help the community. This is really what we need. And we're seeing so many people that have to surrender their animals for whatever reason. Maybe they, adopted during COVID and then didn't have a long-term plan when they had to go back to the office, or people have lost their jobs, or because veterinary care is so expensive these days, maybe they just can't afford to take care of their animal the way they want to. And there really needs to be a place for those animals to go, and so
How does a municipal shelter balance this idea? Because the pressure comes from the community itself, and then it comes from even the city council members, because they're not educated and they think that the no-kill terminology should be a blanket thing for all shelters.
Totally agree. And so that's why we have to educate the community, and we have to educate the lawmakers, whether it's city or state, and say this idea of no kill, it's not real. It's not real. And what you're doing is you're harming animals in your community, and you're turning residents away that need assistance. And
didn't Virginia pass a law to be a no-kill state?
I read something about, I think by a certain year, but then we did reach out to the governor's office, and we I can't remember if he really walked it back or if he just sort of started promoting spay neuter, because really the only way that we're going to, it's not about turning animals away to get to combat the overpopulation crisis. It's about spaying and neutering, right? And going to shelters and adopting instead of going to breeders and pet shops. And so, yeah, I mean, it is a lot about education. And when we see a municipal shelter that is trying to implement no-kill policies, it's difficult, it's trying, but you just have to keep educating, keep talking to people, trying to, and like this video, the abandoned video, I think it paints a really clear picture of what is happening to animals. And it's real. This is not just something that we're just making up or that happens once in a while. This is happening every single day.
Agreed. And I feel like, again, too, it's almost putting a lot of pressure on the other agencies that are also considering themselves no kill, because now nobody wants to take the animal that they found in a certain jurisdiction that has a municipal shelter, that is considered a kill shelter. So now they're trying to take everything over to another jurisdiction that doesn't have the funds to take on another entire county, because this one facility is considered, quote unquote, the no kill shelter, or it's considered the kill shelter. So, we see it a lot, me being in Texas, we hear the rhetoric all the time, we're drowning. Texas has always been drowning. I think before, pre-COVID, I think we were getting somewhere. I think the spay and neuter initiative was something that was really starting to, catch on. And I feel like we've gotten to a place where it's just like, every phone call we answer, are you no kill? Are you no kill?
Yeah, people, that's what they want. That they have this idea that, oh, my animal's going to be okay there, but that's not the case, and
the funniest part about all of that is they're at home eating their chicken sandwich and they're asking that question. I don't want to get PETA started on that. Now, really quick though, I do want to talk about I do want to talk about this piece. So you have Spark doing a great job talking about the terminology that's just used in animal welfare and how to be more collaborative. You have Bissell that's doing an amazing job out there in the community. Do you see a time or a place where maybe PETA, Best Friends, and all these other organizations somehow come together and find ways to provide resources in a community that needs it? Like that's what we need, more access to care, spay, neuter. We need these big organizations to offer scholarships for people that want to become veterinarians, and or subsidize veterinary care, or provide what's the word, Bishop? Like if a company like opens up a business somewhere, the government can give them there's a term for it.
Like a tax break or a subsidy.
There's a term for it. But my point is, like, if we're gonna make change, like when I look back at the history of this profession and animal welfare in this country with the ASPCA, like Henry Berg pushed until, I mean, people hated him. He was not liked by a lot of people, and but he got the support that he needed, and he eventually was able to set standards. And so, what's next for PETA? Like, this video is great. It's great. Now, there's people in the comments that say, okay, well, PETA does this, this, and this, so they're not seeing it with the value that we see it. But like, I guess, what's the tangible thing? What's next for PETA? What's something that we can look forward to see where this is going to be just more than a video or a slogan?
Well, I think we just have to keep pushing awareness and keep pushing back on this idea that no-kill policies are something to celebrate, and that shelters shouldn't feel the pressure that they do feel to have these no-kill policies and these low euthanasia rates and these high save rates, because the animals that they're turning away, they're not disappearing, they're going somewhere, something is happening to them. And nobody is tracking, like a shelter, how many animals, they've turned away. They're tracking how many adoptions they've done, how many animals, they brought into the facility, but they're not tracking like the number of animals that they're turning away. And that would be a really interesting number and probably really compelling. And so I think we just have to keep pushing back on the narrative that no kill is the way to go, and try to get away from the kill shelter idea mentality. I still hear people say, oh, well, I want to bring my dog to a no-kill shelter, and it's, we just have to keep educating people, until they get it. I know it's going to be a long road, but we keep exposing how dangerous those policies are, and that mindset, and talk to people about, what shelter workers go through, and that, really difficult decisions have to be made. That's part of animal sheltering these days. And that's, euthanasia is just, it's the reality. And nobody wants to euthanize, but unfortunately, we have created a situation in our country with this overpopulation crisis that euthanasia is more humane than many other things that can happen to animals.
Yeah, we see rescues. We see some shelters warehousing animals, or even can be honestly considered hoarders. The definition of hoarding is basically unable to provide the care that you need for all those animals. And some shelters that are understaffed and overpopulated, they're dealing with it on a day-to-day basis. If you're listening and you want more info, we did a show with Daphna Nakminovich, the senior vice president. I hope I get it right this time.
Yes.
But she went into some of the things that you're doing in Virginia, which are great. Like there's a mobile clinic, I believe, that PETA has. Four of them. We need more of that. We've had Dr. G on the show. She's got the Rascal units out in Ohio. That's what I'm talking about. Like, I would love to see our major organizations come together and start just putting these things out in every community and really find ways to provide that access to care.
Yeah, and making spay neuter more accessible. I think you said a few minutes ago, making that more accessible to folks who really want to get their animals sterilized. They just don't have the funds to do it. And so expensive. A lot of people can't afford it. It's not on their, it's not that at the top of their list of things that they have to do. And so we do need to make it more accessible. And we have 4 spay neuter mobile clinics that travel within about a 2-hour radius of our Norfolk headquarters, but we also do 1 or 2 day spay-a-thons in underserved areas of Virginia. We'll travel like 5 hours to Southwest Virginia to do 2 days of free spay neuter, and then we'll travel a couple hours north to do that as well, and that's needed everywhere. And we do a lot of work in North Carolina, and it's sorely needed there as well.
It's fantastic. Well, it's hard for me to like put in words. I value truly everyone in the animal welfare industry. When I was just in here inside the shelter, like all the animals look really well cared for. It's not like they're doing a bad job in that regard. And I just wish they would shift their focus away from that terminology and that expectation, because they didn't start it. They just championed it. They had and have just an exorbitant, I think that's a word, amount of funding. And as I was leaving to come out to record the show, at the door, they have like found a lost pet sign that you put in your yard to keep these animals out of the shelter. And, as a former animal control officer, I have an issue with that in some regards because of safety, public health and public safety. And you're bringing a strange dog into your home that may not get along with your animals or your children. And now we have animal control has a whole another issue on their hand where they have to do the bite report and the quarantine, et cetera, et cetera. And so this whole managed intake is, I think some aspects work, maybe scheduling owner surrenders when staff's available, things like that can work. But like this idea of the community to do all the work kind of scares me a little bit.
For sure. And, I was the kitten flyer that I was talking about before. I was thinking about it today. I was looking at it before I started talking with you too. And a lot of people don't know how to take care of a kitten. They wouldn't know what to do. And to put that kind of responsibility on somebody, it's unfair. And that's what the shelter is for. That's why we have a municipal taxpayer funded shelter, to do that, to be that safe haven for unwanted and stray animals. It's, the community needs to support the shelter and support the shelter workers, but they are the experts. They're the ones who should be able to bring animals that we find that need help, need vet care if they're strays or if they're unwanted, if they're neglected. That should be the place for them. And there's so much pressure to have these policies and to turn animals away and to only take in certain animals. And it's such a disservice to all of these companion animals.
Yeah, I think to play devil's advocate, I think, animal welfare in itself has kind of put themselves in a bind. For me personally and what I've experienced in my own state, I'm also from the deep South Texas, all the way on the border, where I started my career. I think the idea too of not hosting a responsible owner, I think, has been a huge issue for us as well, because I can't tell you the amount of people who just want to dump an animal because they don't want it to be potty trained, or it destroyed their couch, or it's 14 years old and I bought a new house and I don't want to take it with me because I don't want it to ruin it. So I feel like there really has to be some kind of, give and take when it comes to that. Like, yes, we should be here for those who absolutely need it. You're sick or you unhomed or something like that. But we really need to also start putting the responsibility back on pet owners too, and realizing that having a pet is a privilege. It's not just something that you can, dump and then go get yourself another one 6 months later because now you're missing that companionship. So I feel like, we've done ourselves a disservice in that sense of things, of becoming that catch-all for everything. And I think we need to find a happy medium to where, we're here truly for the animals that really need it, rather than the person who just doesn't want it because it peed once in the house or it destroyed their couch.
Right. And that's why we also say you have to think really hard and take your time. If you're going to bring a companion animal into your home, it's a huge responsibility and it's not something to be taken lightly or to do as a spur of the moment decision. Like this animal is going to be with you for years. You're going to have to dedicate time, your finances, energy, affection. And when shelters who are so desperate to just get the animals out of the door do
Yes.
free adoptions or $10 adoption for puppies and $5 adoptions for dogs over. And that's not responsible. You might get some good people who want to take advantage of that, but you are also going to get people who aren't really taking the responsibility as strongly as they should. And that animal could go into, a bad situation. And another thing, one of the policies is sort of, and I think I kind of touched on this, but lowering the standards for adoptions. Looking into somebody's background, talking to their landlords. Does this person have a criminal record? Have they ever been charged or convicted of a crime or of cruelty to animals? Really, like, we're responsible for these animals. We're supposed to be putting them in loving homes, not just getting them into any home.
I worked for a shelter that would not allow impulse adoptions. But the benefit was we had no strays in our community. So we would have to import dogs from other places, a lot of times from the Native American reservations. However, it allowed for them to really ensure. But I would love to see, and maybe Shelter Animals Counts has some data on this, how many from the impulse adoptions versus the ones that are really vetted. How many, what's the return rate on those? I would love to know that information.
Absolutely.
I just have to share with you. I just went talking about like responsible pet ownership and all this stuff, and me being here outside of the Best Friends No Kill LA adoption center, shelter, whatever you want to call it. This couple just got into their car and left with their brand new kitten or cat. It was an adult cat, actually. And first off, let me just say, they got a very nice, they didn't get a cardboard box. It was like a very nice gray cat carrier that had Best Friends written all over it. So I don't know if they had to pay for that or that was free, but anyway, we can talk about that later. But this is what I noticed. This is why I feel like if I ever was to build a shelter, I would somehow have the parking lot visible from everywhere in the shelter, because you're witnessing people like starting a whole new family with this pet. And so initially they put the cat in the back seat in the carrier, and then the guy gets out of the car, grabs the cat, and brings him to the front seat with him in the passenger side. Like those are those moments of understanding like how important pets are in our family. And so I'm just super supportive of anyone who wants to get out here and adopt a new family member. Like that's what we need. And in addition, we need more access to care. We need to raise awareness,
more education.
Yes. And one of my favorite things is we need to reward responsible pet ownership through taxes. You should be able to write off at least 3 pets. I'm not joking.
I like that idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea, but we just got to get a lobbyist to really support it. Before we wrap up, Rachel, is there anything you want to make sure we cover for our listeners? We really appreciate you and PETA getting on the show again.
Well, I would encourage anybody who wants to know more about PETA and why we made the abandoned video to check out our website, PETA.org. We also did a feature on Best Friends, talks about the history of Best Friends and what they're about, where they are, how much money they bring in, the policies that they push, the sort of tactics that they use to bully shelters into having the no-kill policies. And that is also on PETA.org, and they can just punch in Best Friends and it's a very good feature. It's very informative.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and for me, guys, it's about having a conversation. It's not being one camp or the other. It's about being able to have a civilized conversation about what's working, what's not working, what my biggest thing is not one thing works for all communities. It just doesn't. It's not whatever works down here in the South is not going to work up in the Northeast or on the West Coast. You know, we all have different communities. We all have different needs. It's about starting a conversation. It's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's about what can we learn from each other to help the animals in our community.
And let's work
Absolutely.
together. Like,
Yeah.
like I'll be happy to help in any way that I can, as long as I know it's for the right thing. And so, yeah, look, I'm not afraid to kind of push the narrative a little bit. I mean, as you can see, look where I'm sitting. I'm surprised no one came out and joined our conversation. That'd have been fun. However, the reason I do that is because I want there to be just awareness and collaboration. Like, I'm not afraid to say when I'm wrong. I'm not afraid to say, like, they're doing great things in this building. Like, there's no doubt that I just witnessed people leave here super happy. Like, that says something. It's just, let's look at the other consequences that are caused by the messaging, and just, instead of save them all, spay them all. I don't know. Come up with something catchy. Come up with something catchy.
No birth nation. That's what PETA says.
No birth nation. There you go.
Can't have a no-kill nation until we have a no-birth nation.
It's accurate. It is accurate. Well, Rachel, we really appreciate your time. Tell Daphne I said hello. And as we like to say, let's continue to help people.
Help animals.
Absolutely.
humane.